Hello! I keep saying that I'm going to make a video about how I created this beautiful removable cushion cover, and I keep neglecting to do it, so here it is. This is not a tutorial, but I'm going to be linking to a tutorial I followed to make the panels for the cushion cover, and I'm going to talk you through how I adapted it to make it a removable cushion cover. Isn't it gorgeous? So this square and this pattern was taken from BonnieBayCrochet's design for her Aran sampler mystery throw. So she makes this blanket with, I think, 5 or 6 different squares of different kinds of sort of braided textural stitches, and then puts them all together. I think these stitches look beautiful. This one, I think it's square number 3. I think she calls it the wheat stitch, which is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, they look like beautiful ears of wheat. Ears of wheat? So I used for this, now I've got a feeling that I might have mispronounced the brand of this yarn. Sirdar, I was calling it. S-I-R-D-A-R, very well-known brand of yarn in the UK, but maybe it's Sirdar, not really sure. Anyway, it's this brand, so the Hayfield Spirit Chunky, and this is the colourway Ember. And I was a little bit unsure when I started making this up. I just thought, I really like that stitch, I'm going to see if I can do it. As a somewhat beginner, I thought it might be quite challenging. It was a little bit, but her tutorial is so easy to follow. So I thought, I'm just going to see if I can create the stitch. And as I started creating it, I realised that with this chunky yarn, it made the perfect size for a cushion cover. So I continued with it, and then I bought some more yarn and made the back panel as well. I was a little bit concerned that maybe because this self-striping yarn goes this way, obviously, as you crochet up, and the texture goes this way, then it might look a bit weird, but I really like how that's turned out. I think it adds a different dimension to it, so I'm pretty happy with this. So like I say, I'll link to her tutorial. It's a very, very, very clear tutorial. I did struggle at first with this braided design here. It's a little bit fiddly, not gonna lie, it is a little bit fiddly, but she says herself that right at the beginning that, you know, even though it looks a little bit confusing and complicated at first, it really does only take a couple of doing it to get the hang of it, and it became second nature quite quickly, and it didn't really take that long to get the hang of. And because the square is quite small, it wasn't that challenging all round. The hardest bit really for me was once I had the 2 panels made, how I was going to attach them and make it removable. At first I considered maybe making it like a pillowcase and having like an extra slip in the back somehow to fold inside, until I asked my former architect stepfather about his opinions, and he said, why don't you just put poppers on the inside? And I thought, hadn't considered that. So this is how I did the construction. Now, in her mystery throw, obviously her squares are all flat to each other, but she uses this stitch that I did the border to. She actually uses to connect her squares in her blanket as well. I already wanted to use this as the surround because this is a really nice stitch. I think she calls it the neuron stitch. I've seen it called the crab stitch. or aka reverse double crochet if you're in the US, and sorry, reverse double crochet if you're in the UK, and reverse single crochet if you are in the US. It's actually the border I used for my second star blanket, and it really looks nice. It's like a really nice piping sort of effect, textured piping. The thing with this stitch though is that on the back of it you just sort of get this sort of crisscross, whereas on the front it looks nice and neat. And do you see the difference there? So that's the front and that's the back. So because I was using this variegated colourway, it was quite important for me to make sure that these foundation borders were in the same colour each side. So I had to do a little bit of scouting around in the yarn balls to pull out the orange section of the colourway, so that it basically looks pretty similar piping wise on each side. She talks about that in her tutorial as well. So the areas that I modified, when she does her first foundation border, she has chain 2 in the outside corners to get around the corner. I think, and I was a little bit unsure with her tutorial whether she did the same thing when she does her second row of single crochet, double if you're UK, foundation border. I think she did another chain 2. Now because hers is flat, that's fine, but because I knew this was going to be, you know, going around a corner and I didn't want it to maybe pull open, on the second round I single crocheted twice into that chained corner rather than doing another chain. One of the hardest bits that I found was a mental challenge, and maybe this is just an example of how my brain doesn't necessarily process maths as well as it did when I was at school. When you do your foundation border across the top and the bottom of the row, it's really easy. You just put one stitch in every stitch. Spacing the stitches down the side was a challenge that shouldn't have been as difficult as I was seeming to find it. So what you have here within this square of the sampler, and I'm just going to give you a little tip of how I did this. Right at the bottom you have some half double crochets, and that's like a sort of odd extra row there, and then the rest you have 12 sets of 2 rows that make the pattern. That's going to sound confusing unless you've done the tutorial. Altogether I think it's 24 rows plus this one at the end, so 25 rows. But you've got 44 stitches across, and then you've got to fit 44 stitches into 25 rows. This did my head in for about a day. I was wandering around thinking about how to space out these stitches, because I'd made, like, I thought, well, I can just roughly do it the same distance, and I kept having to unravel it and do it again, until suddenly I realised that actually there is a way to do this. You've got 12 double rows, right? So you have 6 groups of 4. 6 times 7 is 42. So you have 1 in each corner, and you can do 7 stitches across every group of 4 rows. Of course, you've got this extra row at the end here, so when it came to this portion, I knew that the last 4 rows, instead of being 7 stitches across the last 4 rows, it was 7 stitches across the last 5 rows, because I had to make sure to grab at least one stitch in there before the corner. So that's how I worked it out. So if you want a little tip there, you're following her tutorial and you're wondering about how to space your stitches down the side, that's how I did it. Now, when I connected the two panels together, I picked the side of the cushion I liked the best as the front, and I did my neuron / crab / reverse double / reverse single crochet all the way around. But what I did, let's just undo this so I can show you. I started connecting them here, about I think 6 stitches in from the corner, just so that when the cushion is stuffed in, it's got the corner there to grab into. Think of it like a duvet cover. So about 6 stitches. I started here, stitching them together, and then I went both panels together all the way around, 1 stitch into, you know, each, lining up the stitches perfectly and going through for each stitch until I got around to however many it was here. I think it was 6 here. But then to make the gap, when I got 6 stitches in, I only put that crab stitch into the top panel. Let's see if I can show you this a bit more so you can see what I mean. So it goes through both to a certain point and then only in the front panel, so that because these foundation borders, it's quite chunky, it's quite firm, I sewed my poppers or snap fasteners, whatever you want to call them, with invisible thread just through sort of half the stitches. They're very, very secure. I didn't go all the way through to the back. I did them through the stitches. Very, very secure with invisible thread. That actually sewing these on took probably about as long as doing one of the panels. But then what happens, because this then closes flush, do you see, you still have that almost seamless piping going around the front, and at the back it's sort of okay too. So I was really, really happy with how that turned out. I thought that was genius of my stepdad to come up with the poppers idea. You see how that works out? What I did was I overstuffed, so my camera keeps falling down. I overstuffed my cushion. So I believe when I first measured out the panels, they were about 35 centimetres square. I realised you could get 37 centimetre cushion pads and 42 centimetre cushion pads from Dunelm. And I thought, oh, I'll get the 37 centimetre to pad it out. But actually, I got the 42, and I'm just to make it really full, and I'm glad I did, nice and overstuffed. Because of the colour of yarn I chose, because it's overstuffed, obviously you can see through the braids there, but I don't mind. I don't mind that, because like I say, this yarn has creamy sort of white colours in it anyway. And this, I believe, was, I bought 2. I bought a cushion pad that had feathers in it, and I bought a cushion pad that was artificial fibre. This is actually the artificial fibre because it was slightly bulkier, and I thought it would be really good for my back. Because I do actually have a couple of physical conditions, which I will talk about in another video, because I think physical conditions, when you're doing something that is a physical craft, creates its own issues. So I'm going to do a separate video on that at some point, just to give some little tips and advice on if you suffer from conditions such as chronic pain or arthritis like I do, how I manage to be productive with things like this without injuring myself, without causing myself too much pain. So that is how I created this rather beautiful cushion cover. I think I might create some more at some point. I think the one panel, maybe a few hours. I'm quite slow. The other thing that I want to just talk about very briefly in this video is a little tool that I have. I've had a little bit of hair or yarn in my mouth there. Lovely. These beautiful little scissors. We all have our little tools that I think we like when we do crafts and things. This, for me, it's beautiful. This was my paternal grandmother's. She was a lace maker, an embroiderer. She was always sitting at her little workstation making things, and these scissors just sit in this beautiful little, look at that, ornate holder. So these tiny little extremely sharp embroidery scissors just sit in there and they go around your neck. So when it comes to the part of the annoying part of the crochet project, when you have to weave in all the tails and you need your scissors, this is brilliant. I don't know whether you can get anything similar to this now. I've seen little embroidery scissors on sale and I always think, I wonder how you get, because they're so sharp, I wonder how you keep them. But I might have a little look to see if I can find something similar that I can recommend, because these are brilliant to keep around your neck. So I just wanted to mention those. I also just want to mention a couple of other projects that I have on the go. So my third Superstar blanket that I've got here, this is supposed to be my solar eclipse blanket. I think you can see why, sort of fills the remit, that I was making with my ombre yarn. This I had to take a break from because it's finer yarn than I've used before. The stitches are quite small, so for this size I'm already at a ridiculous stitch count on the rounds, and I needed to just have a little break from it. It's actually almost finished. I don't think it's going to be too much larger, and that's just going to be a really nice lightweight summer kind of blanket. It's not exactly what I had envisaged, but I think I fulfilled the solar eclipse brief. Yeah, so it turned out a little bit different to how I imagined. It also got put aside because I'm doing my fourth Superstar blanket as well, and this one, oh, this one is gorgeous. This one I am making for a friend and former colleague of mine who lives up in Scotland. So this is made out of the same James C. Brett marble chunky yarn that I made my beret out of. This is in the colour Pebble or Pebbles, and the darker colourway is called It's the 70s, which I think is quite fitting because it's got all these browns and rusts and beautiful teal. I mean, it's just really gorgeous. I'm getting myself some more of this dark colourway. I think I'm going to make myself a sweater out of it. But isn't this coming along beautifully? I think I'm about halfway done with this, and this might be my favourite so far. So that's going to be a really gorgeous present for my friend James, which I'll send up to him hopefully before the end of the winter, because I think he's going to be needing it up there, up north. And yeah, so that's my cushion cover and a little update, and happy crocheting everybody. Hope you're keeping warm. I've got a cold, definitely not keeping warm enough, so take care of yourselves.